And now, there's the problem right there. That bolt came clear out. Well, all good things must come to an end. My Subaru finally said, well, you know what? I'm tired and I don't want to run no more. Well, it runs, not very well. On the way home, well, this cylinder right here, well, it's done. Hardly any compression, but this whole head on this side, when I put it back together, this back cylinder here, all the other cylinders had 150 psi pressure. This one here has only had 130. Now, it had a slight miss. It ran great for about 6 months. Then about a week ago on the way home, all of a sudden, the cylinder dropped out. It's making a loud ticking noise, so I think it's in the head. It doesn't sound like a rod. I didn't run it out of oil. And oil pressure light is not on. Never even flickered because it's got a high volume oil pump in it and king bearings when I rebuilt it. So it looks like that head could be done. So what I'm going to try to do before I pull it off, I'm going to put some air pressure in there. See if I can hear the air coming out of the oil cap, maybe the exhaust, or somewhere in the intake. I don't know, but regardless, I've got to pull this head off, and I'm just going to basically pull it off and see what happened. If you have a Subaru that has a loud ticking noise on one side, I should say, maybe we can kind of help you out deciding maybe what you should be doing or what your noise is. So I'm not going to do a whole step-by-step tutorial on taking this apart, but in a nutshell, I'm going to take off the intake, take off some belt, take off the timing gear, take off some stuff over there, and unhook the 2 bolts on the bottom of the exhaust, take the valve cover off, try to get that off. There's only 6 long bolts holding that head on. So I don't have any really coolant loss, but I've had a slight head gasket leak. Well, it's in the head. I don't think the gasket blew. I think the head has got a crack in it somewhere. It probably had a crack in it when I put it first back together and I didn't see it. And I checked everything, but I must have missed it. But other than that, it's ran really good until this cylinder, like I said, just completely has no compression and it's got a dead miss in it and all that. We'll start it up real quick and let you listen to it and hear how it sounds. It also kind of pops back through the intake a little bit, so I know there's a valve issue or something going on in that valve train. So let's start it up and let you listen to it. You can see it's shaking big time. On this side. Now, if I give it a little bit of throttle, you might hear it pop through the carburetor, the intake a little bit. Let's see if I can get it to do it. Well, it's not doing it now, but anyway, it does it now and then. It'll go pop, 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 like a little popping sound. So something here is going on. So the car's still worth fixing. Yeah, I hit a deer, but I've got parts for that. Not that big of a deal. So I'm going to go ahead and start tearing this apart. And I'm just really curious to see what happened to this head. And maybe we can look at it and see what happened. And, you know, potentially, maybe this might be one of your issues if you have this problem. But no oil leaks. It's been full of oil. That ticking almost sounds like a rod, but it's kind of in between. I've got my little hose stuck up to my ear. It's over here. It's not really in the center of the engine. So other than that, I don't know. So we're just going to, I'm pretty much done guessing. I think I'm going to try to hook some air pressure up here real quick before I tear it apart. See if I hear any major leaks. So let me try to set something up. Oh, and one other thing before we try that air pressure thing, a compression test. I did stick a scope down in there and looked around. I didn't see anything valve damage. I didn't see anything, you know, on the cylinder walls, on the head. Everything looked pretty normal, except just a lot of wetness and oil mixture from the spark plug not firing over there. So I've even tried that, but we'll try the air pressure trick here and see if we can figure out what the issue might be before we tear it apart. Alright, so I've got my hose hooked up here, and in order to figure out when both valves are closed, I'm just going to turn this crank, and if I push, you can hear that air coming up through the intake, so the intake valve is open, but if I push this down, turn this engine a little bit, that noise goes away. It's perfectly quiet, so that is weird. So if I let up on the crank, you can hear the noise hissing in the engine. So the valves are sealing. Right there we got compression, and the air quit leaking. I don't hear no more air leaking. Well, that's a mystery. Unless it's in the coolant system. Take the cap off. See if we see any bubbles. Perfectly quiet. Well, what in the tarnation happened to this thing? Crank up the air a little bit more. I think you can hear it. Now it stopped. So I don't know. So I guess we're just going to have to take the head off and try to figure out what's happened to it. But oh well, I figured maybe if it had a busted head, crack in the head, we'd hear it somewhere. Let's take the cap off here and do it one more time. Let's turn that back on. I hear a little bit, but that's probably around the rings, but that's nothing, hardly at all. But you can see I got plenty of pressure. This thing like, oh. So, all right, well, done with the guessing. We've done all we can here, so let's take it apart. Hey, let me know where you're watching from right now. Well, I know, deep subject. We're back the next day and get everything tore down quite a bit. Got the antifreeze drained out. I got the exhaust unhooked. Just 3 bolts on the exhaust, just nuts you take off, and the exhaust is hanging down a little bit off of the head. Get everything here tore apart. Pretty easy to do if you worked on these before. So all the stuff kind of laying over there. The only thing I've got left to do right now is go ahead and take this crank off, and I think that's a 22 millimeter socket there. Let's see what I got there. Yeah, 22 millimeter. Crack that loose. Once I get this off, then if I take all these bolts out of this cover here, I can get directly into the timing belt and go ahead and slip that off. And then what I'm going to do on these valve pan cover bolts, one here, there's one actually missing here, it's broke off. I never put it back in, but it never leaked. There's 3 on the bottom. The one back here on the bottom next to the frame, it's really hard to get to, so what I typically do is just take the 2 nuts off the motor mount and jack the motor up about, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 inches. And that gives you a lot of room to get in there and get that very last one on the corner. So that's what we're going to do last. Then we'll start taking off the 6 bolts and pull that head out of there. So all the fluid's out and all that. So yeah, it's not too bad of an engine to work on. You just got to kind of take your time at it. But yeah, other than that, I got stuff laying everywhere here. So, all right, well, I'll come back here. Hopefully, we'll be ready to pull this head off. All right, well, we're in our first stages here. I got the engine kind of jacked up, got the bolts off the motor mounts. I got blocks under there, under the oil pan, and some wood, and we're up in the air about 4 inches. Got the front cover off and all that. Pretty easy to do, belts off. And now, we are going to take that cover off there and see if anything falls out. I got all the bolts out, and see what happens here. See if there's anything laying in here. Well, okay. Probably not going to be able to tell a whole lot right now about what's going on or anything, but yeah. So I'm going to have to play around with that and pull that out of there with both my hands. Alright, so there that is, and I don't see any metal or anything sitting down there. Let's see. Oh yeah, I see a little bit right there. See it right there? Because something happened. See a little flaky, shiny stuff right about there? There's some in there, so something's going on. So I don't think we're going to be able to see a whole lot. Shine a light in here. Thought maybe I'd see something broken, but we'll just go ahead and pull the head off and see if we see anything in there. Something happened because it's got a loud heck. All the lifters look good. From what I can see here, they're all tight. So we'll just go ahead and pull the head off. We've got everything ready to pull apart. I just got to take out the 6 bolts there. This head should come off. I shouldn't have to take that plastic off there behind the wheel. Should come off with the head, and the dipstick, it's very loose. So and I got this EGR tube here unhooked in the back, so it should come out as one unit. Alright, so let me go ahead and get these bolts out. We'll pull this head off and see what kind of damage we got. Alright, so we're in our final phases and steps to pull this head off. I've got 2 of the bolts that are out. These were actually 12-point half-inch drive little guys here. But if you lay on the bottom, you can actually reach up in there and get all these bolts with this and on the top. But what I wanted to show you here real quick is these 2 here you can't get out because you can pull them out so far and they hit the back of the frame. Just leave them out like that. But before we take this apart, I did see something here that caught my attention. Let me get the camera set. Check this out right here. This valve train. Something's come loose in there, it's broken off. But anyway, we're going to pull this out. So I actually had 3 of these. I'm going to leave in the bottom. Just pull them out. The 3 on the top are out, I believe. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, this one back here. I can almost get it out. Well, almost, not quite, but we'll just leave it like 80% in. We'll set the camera up here and we'll see if we can get this head off. Alright, so that noise, you know, that's what that was, it sounds like. So I want to try and break this loose without doing too much more damage. Of course, your EGR tube, you should probably unhook it. Don't be like me, leave it hooked up partially. And now we should be able to slide this on the rest of the way out of here. Let's see, I might have, I think I got a tube here. I think that this tube here has got a little bolt in. Let me look underneath real quick. But you can see it's ready to come out. So let me look under the car real quick, make sure I got everything disconnected from that head. Okay, now we can go ahead and take it off. What I did, I took the other 3 bolts off the exhaust on the other side so it would drop down evenly. It was hung up on this. Now it should come out pretty easily. Get the bolts out there a little bit. The bottom one there kind of out. There we go. So close. There we go. Now we'll pull it up and out. There's our head. All right. Flip it around here so you can kind of see it. And there she is. Oops. Oops. Let me get the camera back here. Take these bolts out there. That one. They're in pretty good shape still. And one here. One more here. Ta-da! And now, there's the problem right there. That bolt came clear out. How's that possible? And it's broke right here. See that crack? Yep. So that's what happened. It's probably backed out or something. I don't know, but there's a crack right there. If I can get it to move, you can probably see it there. Because this side doesn't have, well, this side doesn't have that. See, it's solid right there. That's got a crack. So that's that cylinder. That was the miss that we had. Now the other issue I had. Let me just set this up real quick. Alright, so I tightened that down. It torqued down pretty good, so I don't know why it backed out, but nevertheless, I flipped it over and I checked the valves. Everything's good, so if I just had this piece here, I think this head would be okay if I just went ahead and tightened the... this cylinder here was one that had lower compression. Everything was 150. This side was 130. I think if I just did a valve job, I cleaned it up over here, especially on this side, I think this head would probably be okay. So I'm torn in between this, maybe finding another junk head just for that valve train component, and maybe just take these valves and grind them down a little bit. But you see these are burning pretty good. This is the cylinder I had lower compression, but that doesn't tell me much because this cylinder here now, I drove it home and it's all gumped up with oil and stuff that didn't get burnt. So I don't know. stay tuned. But anyway, if you hear a loud ticking noise, you got a dead miss, you could have a valve problem, valve train problem like I had. One of those bolts could have backed out or something. But that's the first I've ever seen that on any vehicle. But I made sure everything was torqued down when I put it together. But I even checked the threads. They seem to be okay, so I don't think it's stripped out or anything. But I don't know. I looked in here for cracks. I don't see any cracks down here, so I think this was just maybe these valves needed to be cleaned up a little bit. So I don't know. Stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. That's the end of that. So that's what my noise was, a popping back through the intake and the dead miss all of a sudden flying down the highway. So maybe this will help you out if you have the same noise, and if you want to look for it, maybe you just have to do this, and maybe I can help you out there in this video. So thanks for watching. Until my next video, guys, I'll see you later. The head gaskets, you know, they look okay, but I still had, when I did the leak down test, the chemical test on the radiator, it showed that I had a head gasket leak. And I assumed it was this cylinder, but I don't see nothing wrong with the head gasket, so I don't know. I checked the block. It looks okay down there. I don't see anything crazy going on with it. Typical, you know, Subaru. But I don't know. We'll be back later. If you want to see some more video on this, give me a thumbs up and say, yeah, do it.